Hello everyone, my name is Amol Nirgudkar. I'm the CEO of Patient Prism. We're live here at Patient Prism Studios at Dicom's 10th Annual Definitive DSO Conference. Long list of words. And I'm here with my good friend, Greg Essenmacher from GNA Consult. And Greg and I have known each other for a long time. We just haven't spent a lot of time personally together, but I'm a big fan of what he's doing in this industry. When Patient Prism launched, one of the big areas of focus for us was working with practices that have high value patients. And the full arch business has been growing at a tremendous pace over the last few years. And what Greg does is very unique. There's not a lot of people around the world that have the experience and the competency to help organizations build their full arch practice from start to finish. And so I'm excited to talk to you. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Amol, so much. We have known each other for quite a while, and we seem to run in the same circles. You know, it's amazing when you see somebody and really respect what you've been able to build with your company. And I hear you speak, and we speak the same language. You know, when it comes to new patient acquisition, and specifically in the full arch space, it's so competitive out there, and it changes, and it's so dynamic. And that's something that I really appreciate about what you do. And, you know, I really want to have some conversation around that. Absolutely. And what you've seen about the changing dynamic and landscape of, you know, patient acquisition when it comes to full arch. I work mostly in the direct-to-consumer lane. You know, the single house providers where they're going out to the consumers and trying to capture that patient and be able to guide them through the patient journey. And you have a lot of tools at Patient Prism, and I'd love to talk a little bit about the tools that you have and kind of flip the script a little bit.
Absolutely.
Because that's something that is, you know, unique in the industry. There's a lot of platforms out there and companies that are providing services, but some of the things that you're doing are very unique in that space.
Oh, absolutely. We feel, number one, I think full arch has a huge market. The number of people around the world in the United States that do not have any teeth is in tens of millions, I think, right? And
yeah, I think 61 million edentulous Americans is the last edentulous arch, which is crazy. I mean, it's such a huge number in the aging population, right? I just heard earlier today that, you know, it's going to increase, those over 65 is going to increase estimated 49% by 2040. And when you look at that, that's in 17 years, increasing, you know, by 49%, right? And people are living longer and want better health and want better functionality, better aesthetics. You know, the full arch game is definitely increasing.
So, Greg, if there's a DSO that's a mid-sized DSO that's thinking about, you know, implementing a full arch program within some or all their offices, let's say some of their offices, where you have the doctors that have the expertise of placing implants, and they want to move to the next round. They've hired a marketing agency to kind of drive full arch leads into the funnel. What are kind of some of the best practices that these DSOs should undertake when they launch a program which is going to start attracting full arch patients?
Well, and I love that you started by talking about having the clinicians that, you know, have the skill set within a DSO within a group, because that's critically important. Right. And having a plan before you even launch and embark on this, because, you know, clinically one side, but having the practices and having the entire team on board and having the plan in place of how do you engage with these patients. And first and foremost is how are you going to, having the marketing plan in place.
Right.
Great. You know, make the phones ring. Who's going to answer the phone?
Correct.
It's a lot different to answer the phone for a new patient that you're going to book for a hygiene appointment and bring them into the practice than it is for, you know, somebody who has waited days, weeks, months, even years, who is dentally exhausted or fearful or, you know, it just doesn't have good oral hygiene in general,
right,
who has waited to make that call and then they don't answer the phone. Or they're not answering the phone because they're not answering it the same way.
Correct.
You know, for that type of treatment that you're trying to engage that patient and create that connection with the patient for a patient journey. And that's where some of the tools that Patient Prism has comes into play that are critically important.
Absolutely.
And having a call center or having the right team that are trained, coached, and the consistency. I'll give you one example real quick. So when I work with locations, teams, groups, being consistent in what something is called,
Right.
critically important. Do you call it, a complimentary consultation? Are you talking about a CT scan? Or are you talking about a CBCT? Or are you talking about a CAT scan? It doesn't matter what you determine as a group, what you're going to call it.
Right.
But from your marketing on your website, where they're going to see first visually,
Right.
to the first phone call touch point, to when they come into the office, the dental assistant, I call it a patient concierge, which is the person that's going to guide them through,
Right.
to the clinician, to the treatment coordinator. Everybody should be using the same verbiage. That consistency, there are studies that prove that subconsciously it gives them the confidence that there is one process, one consistency across. It's so critically important.
It's amazing that you talk about that, because I've talked about the patient journey for many years, and I talk it till I'm blue in the face.
And you have been.
Where at what point does the patient stop in their journey of trusting that I have chosen the right provider to take care of my health, right? And the moment they notice inconsistency of any kind, marketing, sales, customer service, front office, back office, doctor, any of these guys, anytime they feel inconsistency of language, inconsistency in how they're treated, they immediately, their radar kind of pops up and like, maybe I should not do this. And no matter how good your doctor is at that point, it doesn't matter, because the patient's not going to move forward.
1,000%. And the greater the dollar figure,
Right.
the number of zeros on a treatment plan, right? And when you're in full arch, you're pretty much at the apex. I mean, there's others cosmetic, right? There are a few, but you're really at the apex of that. And it's really about the inconsistencies, and it's about how the patient feels on that patient journey, their experience. And one of my favorite quotes of all time is by Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
People will forget what you said, people will forget what you do, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And how you make them feel, that goes to culture, that goes to so much, and they'll never forget how you made them feel. And that's that patient experience. And some simple things, people call it the handoff between, that continuity of care, if you will. I call it the hand up. I like to think of it as, I remember when I was a kid, right? When you're kids and you want to get over a fence, and you put your hands together and you give them that hand up.
Right.
And in a practice, from the time that the person taking the lead call to the time that they walk into the practice and in the reception area, to the patient concierge, to the doctor, to the treatment court, every touch point,
We got to hand them up.
the hand up, whether it's a green sheet, a yellow sheet, in the system electronically, whatever it is, if there's something significant that a patient tells you, is that hand up, hand off, hand up happening throughout the practice? Whether it's somebody's getting married in December, or they're fearful of this, or whatever it is, the patient shouldn't have to explain that or say it more than once.
100%. And I agree with you so much. One of the things we preach at Patient Prism a lot is, you're not in the business of selling an arch. You're not in the business of selling a crown or a bridge. You're in the business of earning patient trust. And the only way you can earn their trust, by making them feel valued and important, that they're the most important person you're talking to at any point in time. And that shows, whether you're smiling or frowning, will show even if you don't see that person on the phone. You can tell.
1,000%.
And that's where we feel, and the biggest impact we've made in this industry is in the full arch industry, because the value of saving a customer that's worth $40,000 is so high. Obviously, you're spending tons of money on marketing. On an average, if you ask some of the experts in marketing, they'll say it costs on an average $1,500 to $2,000 as a cost of acquisition of that lead.
Oh, and that's if they're doing really well.
That's if they're doing really well,
$2,000 to $3,000
Yeah,
is
yeah.
about the range.
Right.
But yeah.
You could be $5,000,
I
$10,000.
want to know who's doing the $1,500 to $2,000, because we'll pour gasoline on that fire to bring more
Right.
patients,
Absolutely
more
right.
leads in.
And imagine them calling and saying, okay, well, I'm looking for a They don't know what they're saying. So I'm looking for dentures. I'm looking for fixed dentures. Coaching them on how to really talk to that patient.
Yeah.
But imagine the patient got told, "Hey, it's going to be 50,000." That's it. And then the patient's like, "Holy cow! I'm sorry, I can't afford that."
Conversation's over. Yeah.
And we cannot create barriers. Right? The job of anybody in healthcare is to get the patient to better health. And anything that prevents them from getting better health. So people say, "Oh my God, selling is a bad word." It's not a bad word if you're moving the patient to better health. And one of the lessons we have learned from our amazing clients, oral surgeons, periodontists, who are doing, or GPs that are doing full arch work, is they have really trained their front office people to have a meaningful 15 to 20 minute conversation. It's not 5 minutes. It's not 7 minutes. It's not 10 minutes. It's somebody's going to spend $50,000. No matter who you are, it's not easy to come up with that kind of money. And you have to sell them more than just affordability. Affordable, you've called the right place. We have great doctors. And so that's where you come in, right? You can coach the front.
Yeah.
And you can also coach people in the middle of what that patient experience looks like after they arrive. Because obviously we can make them book an appointment, patient prism, which is critically important, because without that,
nothing else happens. There's no other opportunity.
There's no patient.
Yeah.
But what do you do when you engage a new client, and how do you coach them through the process, through that journey of the patient, through the office, through treatment acceptance?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's really understanding the baseline of, an assessment of where's the lay of the land, where are we starting from, because each structure is a little bit different of how are you handling the calls, what is the baseline of expectation, what are the metrics you have in place to be able to track, right? Because what you don't track, you can't attack. And you really have to attack. It's so competitive out there. You really have to make sure that you're attacking the areas and where can you get the most uplift initially. And that's what's most important. And then it's a matter of, sure, there is scripting, but I like to be able to and share with them scaffolding, right? Because it has to sound natural. It's here are the points that you're trying to establish with the patient that's on the phone. Here's the goals. And so when they come up with, obstacles or barriers to coming in, these are some of the ways you can talk through it. And it's conversational.
Right.
Because, if it's script, it's robotic, right? But you certainly have to get from where you are to where you want to get to. So you give examples of, but also learning more about the individual. So that coaching and training takes time, just like I'm sure it is with your team. It's not a one size fits all, but there is some structure to it. When you're talking about, a patient experience, it starts with empathy. What does empathy look like? You have to literally lay out what empathy looks like and sounds like. That's so critically important. And there's 7 steps to what empathy sounds like, right? Paraphrasing, right? Showing them that you actually care. That's the tone and underscore of everything that you do. Making sure that, you use your USPs, your unique selling proposition, that you assure them they've come to the right place. I have a simple moniker for anyone who's on the lead call. It's easy, EAZ. E for empathy, A, assured them they called the right place, and Z is don't put them to sleep. Have a little more energy than they have on the phone and create that sense of urgency. That it's simple because if it's memorable, they'll remember it and they'll be able to use it. And of course, there's a lot more in there. So that's the beginning phases, and then all one team. Break down the silos between those on the phone, those in the front, and those in the clinic, and making sure everybody's on the same team. So the launch day with the entire team is critically important.
What kind of results have you seen when you go in after? How long does it take, number one? And what kind of results can these DSOs or dental practices expect after working with you?
Yeah, so the initial uplift, because a lot of the preparation happens before pretty much anyone in the practice sees me for the first time. And then that uplift, that 30 to 60 day uplift, is very tangible. And it depends a lot on where the baseline is.
Right.
But the no-show rate typically will drop by double digits.
Wow.
Pretty much in that first 30 to 60 days. Depending. If they have a call center, then it's a little different. But if they're taking those calls in practice at the practice level,
nice.
Double digits, 30 to 60 days with some simple coaching. Because that coaching, they have to have some type of call recording system, because we listen to the calls. It's daily that they send in some of the information to me, and then I respond back to it. That's one of the biggest pieces. With the treatment coordinators, a lot of times I'll do some of the high level, but I bring in coaches that are treatment coordinators that have been doing it for a long time and are rock stars, because I like to bring in those that know how to do the hits, right? So I do like the general contracting, and then I'm really working with bringing in strategic partners from the industry, because I think that's critically important.
To improve, how do you see case acceptance rates rising after working with you?
Yeah, so if they're in that, the 20% range when it comes to that, same day, or if within like 24 or 48 hours, usually that bump is somewhere in the 3 to 5%. So that's a quick turnaround for those that are on the lower end.
Nice.
The higher end ones are a little tougher to get to, and usually we don't tinker with that right away. So, but the numbers, when you're looking, it depends on the volume of the practice, and those are for more of those higher volume surgical centers that I've been working with. For a DSO that's looking to add full arch, then it really depends on the number of locations, what their structure is. We've seen with one group that I work with, which was pretty amazing. They had 6 locations. They were looking to add. They were kind of tinkering around, and they were doing a few full arches a week. We saw that of a 350% increase within the first 30 days, just with putting in some systems in place and doing some training and coaching. Myself, and I had 2 or 3 other coaches that were doing virtual as well. So that was a full-on implementation with a size of 6 locations.
How do you think Patient Prism can impact full arch world in your view?
Yeah, I think one of the most impactful ways initially would be with the call monitoring, really with the inflection points. And one thing that I love is that with Patient Prism, the data is available. It's the coaching to and understanding the data and being able to implement it right away. And that would be for those that are doing the calls that have decent call rates within practice level. What I really love for those that are, GP focused practice that are adding full arch to a GP is outsourcing, that don't have a call center. Outsource that to Patient Prism to allow them to actually book the appointments because of the trained and skilled team. That's so critically important. Eventually, if you get big enough and you grow into that, sure, absolutely. And I talk a lot about that in engagements that I have with clients, is what can you outsource reliably initially, and then when is the time, right, to transition? And I know that your philosophy of that is like, what can we do to be able to help? And then where does it transition to? And some clients are like, no, it's working, right? I'm not going to, don't break it. It's, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? It's fine the way that it is. And also, and forgive me, I'm trying to think of the name of the product which shows the inflection of the tone of the conversation that happens.
Well, I mean, I think we look at the conversational context. I mean, we have a product called Deep Lens,
Deep Lens, yes.
And Deep Lens basically looks at conversational context and understands very quickly what prevented the patient from moving forward. And that analysis is within 1 minute, which means now, before the patient has an opportunity to call the next doctor, your team is equipped with the verbiage, with understanding of what could you say to that patient when you call them back. And what we're seeing across the board, almost 25% of those patients are coming back because now we know what to say next. And in the full arch world, it's a game changer, because even if it's 1 extra patient a month, that's $40,000-$50,000.
It's huge.
And we're seeing that impact. We love working with lots of implant companies out there that are looking to make sure that the dollars that you're spending in driving these leads into the funnel are not wasted. And at the end of the day, patients are being helped because patients need this more than ever before.
Well, and see, that's the key. When you're talking about patients that have finally gotten up the courage to make that first phone call,
correct.
If they are disenchanted with that initial conversation, if you will, to have that immediate feedback to capture them before they move on to the next, because it will take them a while. They're not going to like hang up and dial the next.
Correct.
Even though they know that there's next there because of the competitive nature of where they sourced from.
Right.
For sure. So that's a critically important tool that you have for sure.
What's a good way to get a hold of you, Greg? Is there a website, an email?
Yeah, both. So the easiest way really is finding me on LinkedIn is an easy way, a lot of information there for sure. But also going to my website, which is dentalconsult4.com is an easy way to find
dentalconsult4u.com, and then we'll put the information on this video as well so that people can easily contact.
Appreciate it.